And now, without any further delay, let's start our Miller Consultant webinar, Is Your Organization Getting Ready Enough? Is your organization getting enough from your employee engagement survey? It is my pleasure to introduce your first presenter today, and she is Dr. Meredith Wells-Lepley. Meredith is Senior Organizational Strategist with Miller Consultants, and her work focuses on accessing employee engagement and organizational practices, developing employees through training and coaching, and changing organizations for the better. Meredith's clients include Toyota, the U.S. Army, Logan Aluminum, Brown Forum, 3M, Darley America, and much, much more. Meredith holds a PhD from the University of California, Irvine, and has won awards for teaching and research. Moreover, her work has been published in highly regarded academic journals and featured in popular media outlets, including the Washington Post, U.S. News and World Report, the Boston Globe, Psychology Today, and National Public Radio. And with that, Meredith, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Tanya. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. I'm happy that you all are joining me today to talk about employee engagement, specifically employee engagement surveys. So I'd like to start off by just taking a moment to introduce Miller Consultants to any of you who are not familiar with us. I believe most of you on the webinar today are. But for those of you who are not, we offer services that help you build strong, resilient organizations that are sustainable for the future. Our firm has a 35-year track record of assisting both large and small client organizations in developing leaders, becoming sustainable, learning continuously and effectively, and bringing about transformational change. We are very proud to work with some of the best companies in the world, including those that many of you on the call today represent. Our core team consists of a small group of very highly experienced experts in leadership and organizational analysis and development. All members of our team bring knowledge of the latest and best approaches in our field because everything we do is based on research. We are committed to innovation so that we can bring cutting-edge services and products to our clients, some of whom you see here. So today we're going to be talking about surveys, and I just want to give you a little bit of background on Miller. At Miller, we have 50 years of survey experience. Kathy Miller Perkins and I have been doing surveys for a very long time, and we have a combined 50-plus years of survey experience, which I don't know about you, Kathy, but it makes me feel pretty old. Our surveys have been used in organizations with all levels of employees, from upper management to staff, and they've been used for research purposes to broaden our collective knowledge as well. So as such, we've developed many of our own surveys, some of which have been published in academic journals and thus are used by other scholars and practitioners. They've been used in thousands of organizations around the globe and have been completed by tens of thousands of employees, and we're very proud about that. So again, thank you today. Thank you for joining us as we talk about employee surveys and we question, are we really getting enough from our employee engagement surveys? So let's start with a poll. We're going to start with a quick survey. This is a webinar on surveys, so we're going to start off with a survey. Does your organization conduct employee surveys? So please take a moment to indicate on the screen whether your whether your organization never conducts surveys, whether they have in the past but not currently, they do occasionally, or yes, they do all the time. So I'll give you a few seconds just to plug in your responses. Continue to change a little bit. So, okay, so right now it is looking as if about 40% of you all, your organization conducts surveys on a very regular basis. 30% occasionally, Some of you, 20%, about a fifth of you are saying no, never. And some are saying, well, we have in the past, but we're not currently. So about 70% of you all are conducting surveys. So that's really nice to see. So really this webinar is aimed toward you all that are conducting surveys. So lots of you are conducting surveys. So why are we talking about employee engagement surveys today? Why are we even talking about this? Because as Josh Burson writes, if you're a CEO or business leader, the only thing you really have is your employees' commitment and engagement. This is not one of the things to worry about. This is the thing to worry about. For the past several years, Deloitte has conducted an annual survey of organizations to determine the predominant talent, leadership, and HR challenges. And this year, they had over 3,000 organizations from 106 countries. And the results of this year's study revealed that for the first time, employee engagement and culture is the #1 challenge around the world right now. It's the #1 challenge. 87% of respondents said that this issue is really important, and 2/3 of the HR respondents said that because this is such an important issue right now, they are updating their engagement and retention strategies. So engagement is crucial right now. And why is that? Because today people really expect more from their work. They're no longer interested in just punching a time clock and collecting a check for their time. They want to be truly engaged in their work, to have a passion for their work. They want to make a meaningful difference. As Joey Ryman says in The Storm of Purpose, people are not motivated by the company's bottom line. They want to feel like a part of something that is bigger than themselves. They want their work to be meaningful, and they want to make a difference. They want to be engaged in important. So let's talk about engagement and what it really is. So engagement, employee engagement, is, as many of you probably know, a heightened emotional and intellectual connection that an employee has to his or her job, organization, manager, or coworkers. And here's the important part: that influences him or her to apply additional discretionary effort to work. Now, how does this differ from job satisfaction? Well, job satisfaction is an attitude. It's a person's attitude toward his or her job. So an employee who is satisfied might say something like, "I love my job." Engagement, on the other hand, is an attitude and a behavior. It's an attitude and a behavior. So an engaged employee might say, "I love my job, and I go above and beyond the call of duty for my company because I'm so committed to it." Okay? So in 2010, Gallup revealed that unfortunately only 13% of the global workforce is highly engaged. Only about 1 in 10 is highly engaged. More than half of the workforce is not engaged, and 18%, nearly, 20% is actively disengaged. And this 18% of actively disengaged employees, they are missing 118 million more workdays and using 7 times as much health care as engaged employees. Moreover, this recent Deloitte study just found this year that over half the workforce would not recommend their employer to their peers. Now, that's really troubling. That's really troubling for employees, but it's also troubling for organizations. Why is that distressing for organizations? Well, years ago, Gallup conducted an extensive meta-analysis. And for those of you all not in the research and statistics world, a meta-analysis is an analysis of analyses. It's a study of studies. So rather than collecting new data, what they do is they collect the studies that have been done on a particular topic, they combine it, and they reanalyze it. So Gallup conducted a huge meta-analysis of nearly 200 research studies in over 100 organizations in 26 countries consisting of nearly 1 million employees. And they were interested in 9 key performance outcomes. And the results indicated that the employee engagement was significantly related to all 9 of those outcomes that they were looking at. So employee engagement was significantly predicting profitability of the company, productivity, quality, turnover, safety incidents, customer loyalty, absenteeism, shrinkage, and patient safety incidents. So in other words, the more engaged the employees are, the more profitable the organization, the more productive the employees, the higher quality products and services they produce, the lower their employee turnover, the fewer safety incidents they have, the more loyal their customers are, the less absenteeism they have, the less shrinkage, meaning lost or stolen merchandise, and in therapeutic settings, the fewer patient safety incidents they have. So employee engagement is extremely important for businesses. Engaged employees equals business success. So smart, innovative companies realize that they need to ensure that employee engagement stays high. And to do that, they have to measure it. So how do you measure employee engagement? Well, employee surveys are a great way to measure employee engagement because surveys measure attitudes and behaviors. That's what engagement is, right? An attitude and a behavior. So surveys are excellent at assessing attitudes because these are things you can't always see. We think we can, but we can't always see somebody's attitude. As for behavior, you can see behavior. You can observe that. But you may not see all of somebody's behavior. You certainly don't have time to observe them 24 hours a day. So surveys are really your quickest, most efficient option for measuring attitudes and behaviors. Now, managers who work very closely with their employees, have strong relationships with open communication, they probably already have a good idea of how engaged, each one of their employees is. But not all managers do have that sort of relationship with their employees. So surveys are, they're a great way to get that information. They're a great way to supplement because they're a very efficient way to get a clear snapshot from all employees. Moreover, when a manager knows, I've got to click, don't I? There we go. When a manager knows her team's general engagement level, that information can drive richer, more productive conversations with employees about their engagement, about how they feel, about what they need, about what they want for the future to keep them engaged and to keep them feeling like they are making a difference. So surveys, especially those that identify the drivers of engagement, which I'm going to talk about extensively in just a little bit, these sorts of surveys can lead to positive change and improvement, not only within individual teams, but also within the organization overall. Okay, so surveys are a very good, efficient, effective tool to measure engagement. Okay, so let's do another poll. We know that about 70% of your organizations have employee surveys. So now let's see, what issues does your organization ask about on their employee surveys? So please take a moment to plug in your responses, look at these issues, and tell us if your organization assesses that particular issue. I'll give you a few more seconds to plug in your responses. Okay. Oh, they're still changing. So by the looks of your responses, it looks that A lot of your organizations are assessing engagement, which I would expect. They're assessing job satisfaction, which is very closely linked to engagement, so I would expect that as well. Work-life balance, 75% are assessing work-life balance. That's a really big issue these days, and more employees are expecting their work to work seamlessly with their lives. So that is a really hot topic right now. Workplace policies and teamwork are other ones that your organizations are assessing pretty highly as well. Some looking at stress and burnout, some looking at intent to leave, few looking at social support. Okay, great. So I think we've got a really good picture here of what issues that your organizations are asking about. So they are asking about engagement and job satisfaction very heavily, and some of the other issues as well. Good. Great. So those are all good issues to ask about. And at Miller, we assess a number of major outcome issues as well. We look at employee engagement, job satisfaction, and then sometimes we also include on our surveys, if it's pertinent to the particular client, we'll look at employee health, stress and burnout, intent to leave. Okay, and this is great information. We need to know how engaged, how satisfied, how stressed out our employees are. We need to know these things. But when you know your employee's level of engagement, then what? What do you do about it? If you only have a snapshot of employee engagement, you don't know how to move forward. Okay? So lately, engagement surveys have been criticized for not being detailed enough to really help an organization make meaningful improvements. Most engagement surveys are just a snapshot of engagement, providing you with information about how satisfied, how engaged your employees are, but not giving you any information on the issues that really affect workers today. And those issues like flexibility, transparency, development opportunities is huge right now. Leadership, peers, the organization's mission and how that fits with the employee's mission. All of these things drive engagement. So these are issues that are fostering or hindering engagement. And so it would be really useful to include those on an engagement survey to see not only how they stack up, but also how they're driving engagement. Okay? So many surveys provide a snapshot of engagement, but they're not going any deeper than that. They don't help you get from point A to point B, from your current state of engagement to an improved state of engagement. And we know at Miller Consultants, when you are working to make organizational changes and improvements, you need a strategy. You need a roadmap. So I've been really personally fascinated to see these recent criticisms of engagement surveys, because since the inception of my work with employee engagement surveys, I have been assessing the drivers of engagement. Our engagement surveys were based on research on how to attract, engage, and retain talented employees. We actually use the model that you see here. That's the basis for most of our work on engagement surveys. And this model, some of you have seen before, this was developed by my former colleagues and I at the Institute for Workplace Innovation. And it illustrates a number of drivers of engagement, including good leadership and supervision, learning and advancement opportunities so that you can develop. Workplace flexibility, which, as I mentioned, is so important to employees and families now. A culture of inclusion and diversity, having a good workplace design, having work that's meaningful, feeling a sense of teamwork and social support, competitive compensation and benefits, and health and wellness in the workplace. So these are issues that have been included in my employee engagement surveys for years. And the benefit of including them is that it enables you to look at the relationships between these issues and engagement. So using statistics, we can see which of these issues have the biggest impact on employee engagement so that we can help you strategize and make targeted improvements. Okay? So it doesn't stop there, though. Engagement surveys can assess any employee issue that your business wants to know about, any issue at all that could be impacting employee satisfaction and engagement. So some examples would be vacation time, or what employees think about vacation time. Is that impacting their engagement and their satisfaction? It could also include work schedules. It could include flexibility. This person's very flexible right here, but so flexibility is an issue as well. Is it being used fairly across the organization? Is it being used consistently? And then working across the bottom. Our leaders can affect our engagement, the benefits, as well as amenities and facilities, such as the cafeteria, as I have there. In fact, I was working with one organization to develop their survey, and a gentleman in the room said, "Gosh, I wish we could ask about our cafeteria." And I said, "Oh, tell me about that." And he said, "Oh my gosh, it's awful. We have some issues with price and quality, et cetera, and people are just really disgruntled with it." And I said, "Well, then let's put it on the survey." And he said, "We can do that?" And I said, "Absolutely. If you think it is impacting engagement, let's put it on the survey." So cafeteria is on their survey, I'm happy to say. So all sorts of issues we can look at. So at this point, I'm going to pause for just a moment to see if there are any questions. If you have any, please type them into the Q&A box on your left. You just go down toward the bottom and type in your question, and then click the little chat bubble. So I'll give you just seconds to see if you have any questions. Let's see, I'm not seeing any yet, so I'm going to proceed, and if some pop up, then I'll make sure we get to them later, okay? So let's move ahead and talk about best practices in the process of conducting an employee survey. So we work really closely with our clients to determine what issues they want to assess. And we encourage them to think very broadly about what they'd like to assess. So some questions to ask are, does your organization want to know? And I think this one gets some of the best responses, and that is, what are your employees dying to tell you? What do they want to write about on a survey? Okay, what do they want to tell you? So, and as I said, sometimes, we bring up additional possible issues to a client, and they'll say, "Really? You mean we can really ask about that? I never thought about asking about that." So we work together with you to determine what issues need to be on your survey. Okay? The survey is entirely customized. We have many indices and scales already created, but we often encourage people that we work with to tweak it. Let's work together and tailor it to your specific workplace issues, to your particular workforce, to your culture. We want this to be a part of your organization, okay? So it's entirely customized to you. And in the development process, in addition to the issues that we're going to ask about, we want to look at a number of other issues that we need to flesh out. Should this survey be online? Should it be a paper survey? Should it be online for some employees and yet be on paper for others? Perhaps your workforce works outside quite a bit, and in that case, we might want to do a paper survey for them. Do you need your survey in other languages? What's your timeline? Do you have certain important organizational events that happen at certain periods of time and we need to work around those? And then additionally, what's your structure? And related to that, how many reports do you need? So some organizations request just one overall report for the entire company, but others often request multiple reports, one for each division or business unit, department, or team. And if you think about it, this makes sense because we know there's a whole lot of cultural variation between business divisions and units, especially in larger organizations. So, in this effort to get to point B, this desired engagement level, each unit may be coming from a different place, from a different point A. So by receiving a customized report of their division's unique results, then each division is then able to develop their own unique improvement strategy. Okay. Now, to assess each issue, leadership or social support or communication, whatever it may be, we use several questions. So we combine those questions into an index, just as the S&P 500 is an index of 500 stocks and indicates how the stocks are performing in general. Survey items should be indexed in the same way. So we cluster them into meaningful groups that tell you how your business is performing on that one particular issue. So when we report your findings, we present your index scores, which is a much more reliable and valid way to analyze your results, but it has the added benefit of it's much easier for you to understand the results as well. Okay, so we work with indices. And we also use graphics to make it really easy to understand your results. Miller reports indices in this color-coded fashion so that clients can see how they're doing in both absolute as well as relative terms. So in this example, you can see that employees rate this organization very highly on leadership and safety. Okay? Green indicates issues that are rated highly. They're very satisfied. Yellow indicates employees are somewhat sufficiently satisfied. And red indicates issues that employees are generally dissatisfied with. So this table also enables clients to see how their performance on each issue falls in relation to others. So here a client would see that they're doing much better on, say, safety than they are on flexibility. And again, looking at a table of indices like this is so much easier to understand than looking at the results of each individual survey question, because this graphic here might represent 50 to 60 questions. Okay? This is a much more valid and reliable way to present the results, and it's also, easier to understand. Okay? Now, that said, we do focus on indices, but I do recommend that the individual items be examined for diagnostic purposes. If a company scores low on an issue, then it makes sense to kind of dive into that index and look at the individual questions and see on which items they're scoring poorly, because then it will indicate where you should focus your improvement efforts. So as I've explained, it is critical for organizations to know which issues at their organizations are the most important predictors of engagement, because those are the issues that you really want to focus on. So we do a series of statistical analyses to find out what issues are driving employee engagement. Now, in this example we see that employee engagement on the right is predicted at this company by meaningful work and job satisfaction. Now, job satisfaction is an issue that can be impacted by a number of different things. So if we dig deeper into job satisfaction, we see that it's predicted by inclusion and diversity, leadership, and teamwork at this company. So these are the most important issues for this organization. Now, if you are really perceptive, you might notice that there are several issues that we measured that I showed you on the previous screen that are not included in this diagram. So things like flexibility and safety and comp and benefits didn't show up in this diagram. What does that mean? That means that those issues were not a significant predictor of engagement at this organization. These are the issues in this image here that predict employee engagement at this organization. So each client receives a diagram similar to this one based on what the data says is important for their particular employees. And obviously it's going to vary for each organization because each organization is different. So let's scan back to the last one. Remember, green are the issues that you're doing well at. The ones that are yellow are those that are satisfactory, and those that are red are those that need improvements. So this organization we see is needing improvement on flexibility, inclusion and diversity, and meaningful work. If we plug that information from all of those indices into our diagram here, into our model of what predicts engagement at this organization, we see that inclusion and diversity and meaningful work, two issues that the organization is struggling with, are significantly predicting employee engagement at this organization. So it's critical that this organization work to improve those issues because they are particularly important to employees. So diagrams like these can be really useful tools to help organizations see the relationships between issues at their organizations, where they're performing well, and not only where they need improvement, but also where it's most critical and where it's going to create the biggest impact. So if you think about this diagram here in the last, we see that inclusion and diversity, meaningful work, are issues that really need improvement. Now, in the last slide, flexibility was needing improvement as well, but it's not driving engagement. So if an organization has a limited amount of time, a limited amount of money to make improvements, they want to focus their improvement strategies on these two issues. Okay? All right. So, and just to reiterate, when we also will go back in and look at the scores for individual items for examples, inclusion and diversity and meaningful work. We're going to go in and we're going to look at the individual questions and see which items, which questions are pulling these indices down, because that also will help you figure out how to make targeted improvements. In fact, I was working with one organization several years ago that has a very strong culture of continuous improvement, and I was talking to them about this sort of modeling and what they can do with it. And one of the gentlemen in the room practically jumped across the table, pointing to the diagram on the table in front of me, and said, "Can you do that for us?" And I said, "Well, yes, of course. This is what I do and how I do it." And he said, "Oh, that is exactly what we need. This will really help us improve." So this graphic here is something that companies get really excited about because it helps them figure out how to improve, how to elevate that engagement. So just quickly back to process. Reports can be created for the entire organization. They can also be created for various subgroups within the organization, companies or divisions within the organization, business units, departments, to help organizations and those groups determine how best to move forward. Okay? I also highly recommend that organizations collect some demographic data on their surveys. Why? Because it helps determine which groups of employees are the most satisfied and engaged, and which are the least satisfied and engaged. Now, why is that important to know who's not engaged and the reasons they aren't? So that you can elevate their engagement level. That's why you're doing an employee survey. That's why you're doing an engagement survey, to assess and ultimately increase engagement. So things like gender, tenure, age, department can be really important things to assess because they'll help you find pockets of disengagement. Okay? All right. So as you all know, follow-up is crucial. If organizations are going to ask for employee input, they must be genuinely committed to listening to it and leveraging it. Take positive steps forward. You must take action. Okay? Now, some companies have more sophistication with surveys than others. Some companies already have their own internal processes for distributing results and action planning and initiating change. And others don't. Others need some assistance with next steps. And in that case, in addition to presenting the results, we also provide facilitation of strategic planning meetings, goal setting, follow-up, as well as some change management as companies decide that to make significant changes in their organizations to continuously improve. Okay? All this to enable the company to take action and take positive steps forward. Okay? Now, for those somewhere in the middle, those who would like some guidance, we've put together some tools for you to guide you as you take the next step after receiving survey results. These documents will take you through the process of communicating results to your employees and through action planning, through that action planning and improvement process. So at the end of the webinar, we'll post some PDFs for you to download and use in your efforts moving forward. And I will pause again for any questions. So if you have any questions, please type them into your Q&A box on the left. Okay, I'm not seeing any yet, so we will proceed. Okay, at this point, I'd like to introduce Doris Moody from Logan Aluminum. Doris is HR team leader at Logan. She has been in HR for over 25 years and has 2 advanced degrees and is adjunct faculty at Western Kentucky University. At Logan, she is responsible for team member training, for succession planning, leadership development, and she also coordinates Logan's employee survey process. So I've worked with Logan on their survey since 2011, and it has been an absolute pleasure working with Doris and a company that focuses so heavily on employee engagement. So Doris, I will turn it over to you now, my dear.
Thank you, Meredith. Good morning. I'm pleased to be with you, and Meredith will be controlling my slides. Before I begin this morning, let me tell you just a little bit about Logan Aluminum. We're located in Russellville, Kentucky, which is in South Central Kentucky. We are an aluminum can sheet manufacturer for the beverage industry. So if any of your favorite beverages that you buy in cans, there's a good chance that about 30–40% of those cans were manufactured at this plant if you purchase them in North America. Logan is also unique in that we are a highly participative work system here. We operate with semi-autonomous, self-directed work teams. So for us, employee engagement is critical because our employees run the business. Next slide, please. What you see on your screen is a copy of a culture map that we had about 200 of our employees. We have over 1,000 employees at this facility. We had them to develop a culture map, and we asked the question, what are the keys to Logan's success from a long-term perspective? And as you see on that culture map and the culture cloud, you do not see the typical things that you think about equipment and state-of-the-art equipment. Instead, you see that those things that guide human behavior are critical to our success. So things like our team concept, things like training and employee involvement, and ultimately employee engagement is what our employees believe are critical to our success. Next slide, please. From a survey perspective, Logan has had a survey almost since the beginning. We've been in business over 30 years, and for most of those years, we have conducted an employee opinion survey on an annual basis. And that has been valuable to us in trying to get a view of what our employees are thinking about. Even though we operate in a very open communication environment, it's important to check in on some kind of regular basis to see what our employees are thinking about and what they're concerned about. We began working with Dr. Lefley about 4 years ago because we felt like there were some things that were missing from our survey. Next slide, please. Okay, what you see on your screen is the issues that we assess on our survey. For many years, our survey had addressed issues of team behavior, leader behavior, and overall employee satisfaction. What we felt were missing was those items that go a little bit deeper into what people are feeling and thinking. Things around social support, meaningful work, comp and benefits, intent to leave. While we've enjoyed a very low turnover, we wanted to be sure that we understood what were on people's minds. That's where Meredith was able to help us identify what those issues were for us and to begin to assess those. Next slide, please. The way that Logan's process works is Meredith prepares for us one overall report for the entire company. We have 12 separate business units or departments, and we receive a report for each of those business units so that that information and data is relevant to that particular department. And then we receive 31 sub-reports that break what we call departments. You might call machine centers or areas, and that breaks the data down even more. So we have a total of 44 reports that present overall results as well as the results for each department or each business unit. Next slide, please. What we do with that information, because one of the things that I learned many years ago is don't ask people what they think unless you really want to know, and don't ask them unless you plan to do something with it. So what we do with that information is our management team reviews the plant-wide results. We look for any trends, any connections that are on a plant-wide basis. Then each business unit manager conducts a review of those unit results with his or her unit leadership team. Those leaders, in turn, review those unit results with their individual teams. So we go all the way down to the individual team level and update them on what is happening in the plant and also what is happening in their individual units and their individual teams. From that information, our teams discuss issues that might be identified, concerns that they might have, and good things that they're doing, and determine if there are any actions needed that will help us to continue to foster continuous improvement as an organization. Next slide, please. And the most important thing is, what is the impact of this move? As I said, we've had a survey for a number of years, but what we found that by going after these measures of engagement, it helps to tell us whether or not we're truly in tune with the pulse of the organization, tells us whether we're working on the right issues where we're trying to continuously improve. It helps us to assess whether the improvement efforts that we've made are having the desired impact. And something that we had never measured before is, are there demographic differences in engagement in those employee groups' needs and the trends that are there? We had never looked at that before. And then it also helps us over time to see, do we see any longer-term trends with any of our population or with our organization as a whole? And finally, it's one of our means to continuously improve as an organization. As I mentioned earlier, in a highly participative environment such as this one, it's critical that we keep employees engaged. We believe that is a major factor in our long-term success. And with that, I appreciate your time, and I'll turn it back to Meredith.
Thank you, Doris. Thank you. Yeah, I would like to note that well, did begin looking at demographic issues with me, and I think it's been enlightening. So anyway, so thank you, Doris, for your comments. And at this point, I'd like to open it up to some questions. So I encourage you to write any questions you may have in the Q&A box. So I encourage you to write any questions that you may have. While you're writing, I'm going to go through a couple of frequently asked questions that we hear quite a bit. So sometimes people will say to me, well, we use the best places to work survey. That does the job, right? Well, I have the trophy over there on the side because people have to remember this is a contest. This is a contest. Employees want their business to be recognized, so they rate their business overly positively. In fact, I had a potential client come to me and say, we do best places to work, but I know that my people are inflating their responses. I've even asked them, are you inflating your responses? And they say yes. We want to win. So he said, we do that, but I want you to do our survey because I know then that it will be more objective and they will respond more honestly. The other issue to keep in mind is that best places to work does not assess the important drivers of engagement, and they don't look at a wide variety of them, and they certainly don't connect them back to engagement. So, so best places to work is not the same thing as a solid engagement survey. Okay, let's see. See any questions? Okay, let's see. See some questions. What if different teams, we have a good question, what if different teams show differences in the drivers of engagement? That's an excellent point because you take a large organization that has many different business units, they very well might have different drivers of engagement. And so that's why separating out, slicing the data to look at the individual teams can be really important. It can be an excellent diagnostic tool for you because it will help you see what the drivers are and then work toward improving those drivers for that particular group of employees. Great question, okay? Let's see, being a very small company, our employees would probably be reluctant to respond due to the lack of anonymity. That can be an issue for small companies. We do surveys for smaller companies, and in that case, we simply, we don't ask a lot of the, the demographic questions. We don't ask those demographic questions because we don't want anybody to feel that they're going to be identified. And we reiterate that all the responses are aggregated. So all of the responses to each question and to each index are averaged together. So and sometimes we'll even show a company a sample report so that they can see, oh gosh, there really is no way that I'm going to be identified, is there? So that can be very helpful as well. Okay. Yes, and another question, do you work with organizations on developing follow-up, such as action plans to address challenging issues facing organizations? Yes, absolutely. We will work with you on follow-up whether we've done your survey or not. So absolutely, we do work with organizations, most of which it's when we've done the survey, but we also do it with organizations for which we haven't done their survey. Okay, excellent questions. Thank you. So I'm going to skip ahead to another frequently asked question. Can't we just design our own survey using some inexpensive survey software? Okay. Well, sure, you could. But let me ask you this. I bet that many of you weigh yourself on a regular basis. Maybe you're trying to lose weight. Maybe you're trying to maintain your weight. Now, imagine if you got on a scale one day and it said 160. Next day it said 172. And the next day it said 155. Then it said 163. That would drive you nuts, wouldn't it? Well, that means your scale is not very reliable. There's too much variation in the results, and that's not good. Now let's pick an alternative situation, and let's say you get on a scale each morning and you're trying to maintain your weight, and it reads 160 every single day. Would that scale be reliable? It would. It would. But you actually weigh 145. So that scale is not valid. It's not an accurate assessment of your weight. So professional survey designers do lots of testing to ensure that their surveys are reliable and valid and that they are accurately measuring whatever issues need measured. Kathy Miller Perkins and I do a lot of surveys, and we have had years of courses that we have taken, books that we've read on survey design and survey construction, and we've even taught courses on these issues. So we have many years of experience, and so that certainly comes into play with these engagement surveys. Okay, and keep in mind also that you don't get the statistical modeling, you don't see the relationships between the drivers of engagement and engagement with the cheaper software. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions? I will head to one more, and this really gets to the question that was asked earlier. We've been conducting an engagement survey for years and have historical data. Can we keep our questions and work with you? The answer is yes, absolutely. Just as we did with Logan Aluminum, we will work with you to customize your survey, keeping questions that you like, omitting those that we think may not really be that good. We'll work and massage and test our survey. We'll add questions to make sure that we are appropriately assessing the drivers of engagement, and we will help with action planning. As I said, whether we designed your survey or not, we're happy to help with action planning. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so just to conclude our webinar today, I just want to reiterate that a survey can be a powerful, efficient tool to assess employee engagement. It can be a really useful tool, but it needs to reveal the drivers of engagement at your organization. It needs to assess these issues so that you know the steps to improve, so that you have that roadmap and know how to get from your current state of engagement to an improved state of engagement. So if your survey doesn't foster positive change, please contact us. We're happy to work with you to help you think about some of these issues and to move forward so that you can continuously improve. So I thank you all. It's been a pleasure speaking with you all. If you have any additional questions, I encourage you to contact me. There's Miller Consultants contact info and my email as well. If you have a survey question and would like to reach out to me one-on-one, I'm happy to continue the discussion. Let's see, and just to remind you, we will be posting some tools as well as the webinar slides. So please be on the lookout for that. I think Tanya is going to post them. So Tanya, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Meredith. And as she said, there are some files to download, and they will be on the left corner of your console. So again, thank you so much for joining today. If you want to go and download the PDF of the slides and the tool kits that she is recommending that you download, you go to the File Share pod, and then you click to download. You select the file or shift-click for more than one file, or there's actually an option in the upper right corner of that file share to download all, and then you just click to save to your computer. Once that dialog pops up, click download, and then you save directly on your computer. Again, it'll take a few moments to download. If you have any issues with that, you can certainly follow up with us to Meredith on the email located on your screen. And we will also follow up with an email with a link to the recording of today's session. So again, thank you all for joining, and after you download, if you'd like, you can all disconnect. Thank you so much.